Okay, good afternoon, everyone.
Hold on 1 minute.
Oh, 1 minute. Okay.
Yeah, no, wait. Yeah, you got to give it a second to begin.
Okay. Okay, good afternoon, everyone.
Hold on 1 minute.
Oh, 1 minute. Okay. Well, all right. Why don't we get going? Good. I'll say now good evening since it's after 5 o'clock. Welcome to the Environment Subcommittee. The three bills on the list are House Bill 318, House Bill 869, and House Bill 1200. Taking up 318 first, Kristen, remind me where we are. We had previously adopted Delegate Clark's amendments to the on-site wastewater board. We discussed the sponsor amendments last week, but didn't adopt them. Is that right? Is that where we are?
That's where we are. That's correct.
Okay. I think we discussed my amendments some last week, but does anyone have any questions about them? These again have been worked out between the advocates and MDE. And Tyler, I think I asked you this last week, but can you confirm you're fine with these amendments? Is that right?
Yes, we're fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Delegate Gilchrist.
I'd like to move the amendments.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
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 Opposed? Bill as amended.
Move the bill, Mr. Chair. Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of the bill as amended say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, bill passes as amended. Thank you. Okay, HB 869. I think this is the first time we've had it on the agenda for discussion. Kristen and Delegate Gilchrist, could you explain what the bill does and what their proposed amendments do?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me just say as an overview, this bill came in as changes to the permitting system. And what we've done is we've changed it to a study. And in the 3 weeks since the hearing, there's been a lot of discussion about the study, and the amendments are out now. And Kristen, I know we just got them to you, would you be able to run through them?
Sure. I can bring them up on the screen too. That way folks can follow along. Okay. So the amendments would instead require MDE, their Wetlands and Waterways Program Division, to conduct a study.
And Kristen and Delegate Gilchrist, these are, the focus of the bill, the subject of the bill is ecological restoration projects, right?
Correct.
And a big part of that is stream restoration projects, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so, I don't know if you want me to, if you want to just take a minute to read what the study must entail, or let me read it real quick. It's up to you how you want.
Sure, why don't you read it real quick?
Okay, and so the Wetlands and Waterways Division must conduct a study, analysis, and evaluation of state statutes and regs that affect the permitting or completion of ecological restoration projects that are permitted by the Wetlands and Waterways Division. It would review the permit and permit review process for ecological restoration permits in the state, the opportunity for robust public comment and community review of projects to determine that their short-term and long-term effects will meet the aims of the community, and to review the scientific basis of the purpose of the project and its connections to the watershed. The review would be on the average time it takes from submittal to approval for an ecological restoration project, compared with a joint. The efficiency and effectiveness of the current joint application permit and permit review process and current counter incentives to watershed-based stream restoration. A report is due and it must include legislative and regulatory recommendations, including the definition of ecological restoration that incorporates measurable scientific aims such as reduction of nitrogen, sediment, and phosphorus pollution or improvement of the benthic environment as compared with conditions existing on site during site selection. The report must include recommendations for separate and distinct permit application and process for watershed-based ecological restoration permits, a schedule for regular evaluation of regulations to determine if amendments are necessary to reflect scientific advances in the field, evaluate the need for continuing education requirements, recommendations for ensuring permits are issued in a timely and efficient manner, and any other improvements to the existing permit process. Recommendations for permits to be reviewed holistically and in a manner that weighs the benefits of a restored ecosystem over individual resources. Ensure permits are issued in a timely and efficient manner. And an analysis of whether additional staff or resources would be needed for the creation of a new permit. The vision must conduct the study in consultation with the listed stakeholders. And the Department of the Environment must report its findings to the General Assembly by June 1st, 2024.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I don't know how, I mean, I suppose we should open it up for discussion. I know that there are some advocates and some stakeholders who are on the call that have been working on this. And I don't know how we should proceed. Oh, well, there's some questions.
Yeah, Delegate Ruth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I know there was some of the unfavorable testimony on the original bill talked about, that in some cases, not disturbing the ecosystem might be better than restoration because of, just, I'm not saying that right, but I just wondered if, so I think Sierra Club, for example, was one, I think, that talked about that. And I think I saw Josh here. But so I just wondered if, if this study, in addition to looking at effectiveness and efficiency, is also looking at like whether the restoration actually, achieves the goals, whether it was necessary, something along those lines. Like just, I'm not sure if I'm being clear in what I'm asking.
I think there's people on the call who can address it.
Hi, I'm Rory Murray. I worked with Chris Beecraft with Underwood & Associates and Kevin Smith, who I believe is going to hop on with Maryland Coastal Bays on this. And to your point, Delegate, I think one of the main pieces of the bill that was put in by the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, who is good with this language, is under A1 triple I, where there is a review period. Well, at least the study will look into whether or not there should be a review period for the community or for public comment generally from the science community or the community at large as to the necessity of the project. So there's a public review period now. So part of this study is exploring whether or not that needs to be expanded.
Thank you.
Doug, did you want to respond to Delegate Ruth's question?
Yeah, thank you, Delegate, for that question. Yeah, the language that we're proposing there, and I just noticed there's two number threes. But one of the things we're seeing with especially some of the projects happening for the stormwater permits for MS4 jurisdictions is that they kind of use the Bay model approval, rating for how many pounds of nitrogen a certain stream restoration of X number of feet in length gives them. And it's a fairly streamlined process, almost like a general permit, in which case members of the community are often not consulted about that, and they don't find out about the project until the trees come down. And so we definitely would like a more robust public review period for these projects, even before sites are selected. And that's what the language that we're offering is hoping to achieve.
Great, thank you. That was my concern. Thank you.
Okay, Delegate Otto?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is this creating a new permit, or is it modifying the approach that they do? But it's a study, I know that, but what's the intent? Is it, as you said, Doug, extending the process?
If I may, Delegate, the initial intent was a lot of these pieces of the study were things that the initial bill would have directed the department to do. And what we've uncovered in this process is there's a lot that the department can't do, and there's a lot of stakeholders that need to come to the table to figure out there are just dozens of issues that go into the process for ecological restoration. One of the pieces is the current permit. If you want to do an ecological restoration project under the joint application permit, it's not even listed on there. It's listed under other. And every other piece of that permit doesn't really have anything to do with ecological restoration, partially because it's a fairly new field, but it's also kind of unique in what it does. So one thing we hope to see out of this study would be a recommendation for a separate and distinct ecological restoration permit and permit process, simply because it's just such a unique field. Putting it in another box and looking at it almost as a secondary thing, it just doesn't work. As of now, because of the way that the permitting process is set up, it's almost easier to fit a project into the confines of the permit rather than to fit a project into the confines of the ecosystem, because the permit and the ecosystem right now,
I don't disagree with you with that.
yeah, don't necessarily line up.
Yeah. But I don't want to complicate things, and my concern is certainly of how it affects other property owners when you're talking about watershed wide and this, that, and the other. As this the project would have incentive-based programs that would do that, or is that's up to the study now to determine that, I guess.
Delegate Otto, if I might, one of the things that we're kind of uncovering with these projects is that they can be reviewed by the department just like other permits are for a development project, but the expertise that's needed in the review staff is more specialized. And so that's why we're suggesting some training opportunities for staff to be able to say, well, this subset of projects, the ecological restoration projects, are a little bit more complicated and a little different than a typical development project. And so we would like staff to be trained specifically to review those projects. So it's not necessarily a different permitting program as much as a different review procedure for the same wetlands and waterways permit.
This will have no effect on property owners' land rights. Just that will remain as it is now.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Delegate Ruth, did you have a question?
I did. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. So I actually do see that Josh Tolkien is here, although he doesn't seem to have a head. And I just wondered if he had anything to add in terms of the Sierra Club concerns and whether the study is looking at what it needs to be looking at, so that whatever permitting process comes out of that can.
Thank you so much, Delegate Ruth, Delegate Gilchrist, for introducing this, and Rory and others who've been working on the study. We feel like the study is definitely an improvement, and I know a lot of work has been put into it. Fundamentally, when we take the time to edit or amend something, it's really important to try to use that as a reset opportunity. So we have a couple more important points that we did want to raise that we'd like to see incorporated into the bill. I'm also joined by Rod Simmons, who's with the Sierra Club's Natural Places Committee, who actually understands the finer points of this. So I'm going to speak very briefly, and then I'm hoping to turn it over to Rod, who can just expand on this a little bit. First, in Section B, we put an emphasis on including in the criteria biological uplift. Essentially, what we're talking about is some measure specifically of biological ecological improvement. We appreciate that there are a variety of motivations for some of these stream restoration that go beyond biology and ecology, but when we're going to take the time to put sometimes hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars in disruption into the system, we should have as a criteria that there will be an improvement to the system and use that metric as a way to measure it. And then secondly, down at the bottom, when we're talking about permits being reviewed holistically and in a manner that weighs, the framing there is a little bit odd. I appreciate the sentiment. We think that you need to weigh the benefits of the individual ecosystem resources over the projected benefits. So you actually have to be able to compare apples to apples there. So I wanted to just pause there as I've done the policy overview, but actually turn it over to Rod to expand on either of those 2 points.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to comment here. Just so that I'm actually answering or connected to whatever to the what's germane here. Could you, Josh or one of the delegates,
if you could just explain a little more about the importance of including biological uplift as one of the sort of, I believe it's the definitions and considerations.
Okay, great.
In ecological restoration.
Thanks. Biological uplift is also called ecosystem uplift. It's a real dry term, but it means basically improvement, that we don't want to do damage, and we want to actually see significant, not just a marginal increase in ecological improvement. And it's of course it is a federal requirement for one's wetlands permits. If there's all stream projects require a U.S. Army Corps of Engineer permit for anything that alters a stream through filling or dumping or mending the stream. So it's required, and that's one of the conditions of the permit. Of course, it would be proper stewardship to have all projects demonstrate that as well, even if it wasn't required, but it is. That's why these projects are not appropriate for forested stream valleys, for an example, to use an example, because you can't have ecological improvement if you're destroying or significantly, causing significant disturbance and degradation of existing native plants, animals, and hydrologic functions. So that's why that term is included in the federal permits, and what it means and why it's so important, and why a lot of this controversy over these projects, because they're cited or proposed for the wrong streams, including, and a lot of the contractors or consultants, the design and build firms for these actually know how to navigate around that issue by actually causing harm or disturbing wetlands, protected wetlands. Streams are not wetlands, of course, but so.
And Rod, if I could jump in, I think that actually leads just to the other piece, if you wanted to add anything to it. In letter B, item 5, the current language weighs the quote benefits of a restored ecosystem over individual resources. And the phrasing there of just over individual resources we felt was a bit vague. And we're recommending that you would actually compare the benefits of the individual ecosystem over the projected benefits of the restored ecosystems. You actually need to make sure that we're looking at both potential improvements and potential damages.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's good planning, and it has to be done. And it traditionally has not been done adequately or not. It's just we just start at a point and just move on from there. And that's the way. That's where a lot of the controversy and the trouble with these projects is coming from. It's because we're not doing that.
Hey,
Josh,
Thank you.
go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Josh, were you referring to B? Did you say B5?
It is B5 in the version that I have, starting with requirements for permits to be reviewed holistically. Yes, the number. Well, that is interesting. Now I wonder.
Number?
You highlighted the correct one, but that also means that I might not actually have the most up-to-date. Do you mind scrolling up? Because I'm now curious what we're missing.
Sure, let me email it to Josh.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Do you want me to email it to you or just scroll?
Emailing it to me would be much better.
Okay, that's what I figured.
Thank you.
No way, I'm gonna stop sharing this.
It looks like it was the third one, though. The schedule is not something that's in ours, so I'll take a look at that.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Kristen.
So, Josh, how quickly would you be able to convert your recommendations to amendment language? I know a number of the parties have been working on, amendments for a bit. So
it's included and attached in an email to you and Delegate Gilchrist. In the first one is just the addition of 3 words into Section B, Item 1. And the second one, the language, we have the language and I could paste it into the chat.
Oh, this is what you sent in 501?
Yep.
Okay.
Because we just like to keep everybody on their toes. No, I do apologize for sending it late. It's just working off of what we got.
Sure. Okay. So Delegate Gilchrist, would you like to, our next subcommittee meeting will be Wednesday. Would you like to?
Yeah, it may be that we ought to bring this up on Wednesday. I'm interested in what other issues there are. I know is Doug Myers, you've been working on this on these amendments.
Yeah, and we're pretty happy with the version that was in front of you. I do appreciate Josh bringing that ecological uplift issue into it, and I hope I haven't seen his language yet, but it is one of the things that concerns me that while that's the federal standard, it doesn't really have a definition anywhere. And so this is, I think, something that the study could create. And I think the language that's in Section 1 now about, what are those things that determine ecological uplift? Is it the reduction of nitrogen and phosphorus, which is, the kind of the standards being used for stormwater, or anything in the Bay model that is doing that? But the biological and fish life, there's actually, the stream segments are characterized by those, and they have numeric scores that go from 0 to 5. And so I would love for Ecological Uplift to say, we've done some baseline monitoring. We know exactly what that current level of function is. And what we intend to do with the restoration project is address these deficiencies in that, so that we get more biodiversity in the benthic community, more fish biodiversity, because we've removed a barrier to fish passage or something like that, so that the review of the project doesn't just lean on whatever the project proponent says is ecological uplift, but there's something quantitative that it can be linked to, and that you can produce before and after monitoring data to demonstrate.
Mr. Chairman, I think there's one of Rory's advocates on the line can also address what's in the amendments.
Yeah,
Sure.
Kevin Smith is the executive director of Maryland Coastal Base, is on here. Just want to see if he had any comments.
Hi, good afternoon, and I apologize for being in my car, but I had to go pick my car up from the shop. So anyway, my apologies. I just wanted to add a couple of things, and really the intent of this bill is to ensure that the process for looking at restoration projects is an efficient one and a good one, in the sense that the folks who are going to be reviewing these proposals are going to be educated, trained, and experienced, and that the process is going to be one which helps communicate all of these different ideas and goals into one project. I think it's a way that we're going to end up having a better project at the end of the day, and one where we're actually going to be saving some time and some money. But at the end of the day, a better project, and will serve the citizens in a much more efficient manner. It currently doesn't right now.
Mr. Chairman, I know we have a 6 o'clock floor session, and this subcommittee is meeting again on Wednesday. So I think I'm not sure we're going to get much farther on this right now.
Okay, that's fine. We can defer until then. But before we move on to the next bill, just want to ask: does any other subcommittee member have questions about the amendment language that had been proposed, or what the Sierra Club was discussing? Okay, all right. Well, my request to the advocates is that come up with language that everyone can live with for Wednesday, for our Wednesday afternoon subcommittee meeting. And actually, just Delegate Gilchrist, one question I've got: the proposed amendments, they become the bill, is that right?
That's right. It's
Okay.
all it all becomes a study. It's due in 2024, so there's time to work on this. And everything I've heard suggests that there is a need for improvement in this area, and this study is aimed directly at that.
Sure. Okay. Okay, very good. All right, any other questions before we move on? Okay.
Thank you.
House Bill 1200. Kristen, could you review that bill? And I know some amendments have been proposed, and understand that more amendments will be coming, so we can just discuss. I don't think the latter ones we have text yet, but maybe we can consider those on Wednesday as well. But maybe just Kristen, explain where we are with the bill at this point.
Sure. So this bill is requiring a person that applies for a permit under the environment article to include in the permit application the EJ score from the Maryland EJ screen mapping tool for the address where the applicant is seeking a permit. And then it requires MDE to conduct a certain analysis. Now, MDE did submit amendments that I haven't heard from the advocates. I know they were working with them. I'm not sure if everyone's in agreement. If they are, I'm happy to bring them up. I'm happy to share with the committee, and I'm seeing a thumbs up. So I can, if you would like, I could share my screen and then we can review what the proposal is right now. Does that work?
Yeah, that's fine with me and subcommittee members.
Yes.
Okay, great.
If you guys over here. All right. So the definition of EJ score. I'm sorry, I thought somebody said something. So the definition for EJ score is language is added to indicate that this is defined in regulation, and it would include numbers 1 through 4. And by saying including, it doesn't mean excluding, but the intent is to not limit it to these 4 items, and it would be defined further in regulation. The Maryland EJ, it's being updated to Maryland EJ tool screen, which would be a publicly available state mapping tool.
Right, and I mean the screen, the EJ screen is already available, right? It's online.
Right, I think the intent is to align this with the already. Actually, Tyler, I defer to Tyler if it's already online or not, or if they're working on, if MDE is working on it. I'm actually not sure.
So ours is not online yet, but there will be one at a future date, not too far out. So we want it to be EJ tool instead of EJ screen, because EJ screen is a reference to the UMD tool, and like that's the name of the tool. And so we want to be able to use more than one tool.
Okay.
So this, going down to the new language and lines, starting with line 18, this would update that the EJ score would be for the census tract rather than the address where the applicant is seeking a permit, unless the permit requires the applicant to utilize a US EPA developed tool.
So the EJ tools use census tracts, not individual addresses, although those addresses are within the census tract. So that's the reason for that amendment. And then we know that the EPA is going to be working on and coming out with a tool that might be further developed. And so if there is a point where a permit, has EPA restrictions, we want to make sure that we have the ability to use that tool too.
So this next cycle, actually, I'm reading it, I'm not understanding. It says on receiving a permit application under this article, the department shall, it looks like you're saying review, but it says review and analysis. Is that language also supposed to be updated?
So
is there an analysis?
So I guess we can make that update, sorry. So the person applying for the permit has to, use the tool to get the analysis. And so we are going to verify that they're using the correct address. We are not going to do our own additional analysis.
And would this be the census tract?
It would also be the census tract. Sorry, yeah, I guess I missed that address.
Yeah,
I was rushing through these.
I know, everything was moving really quickly this afternoon. So then, that'd be for the purpose of verifying the information. And then MDE would be required to provide a description of the environmental justice indicators contributing to the EJ score. Again, of the census tract, I assume that's going to be updated too.
Yeah, sorry.
I get it. It was moving quick.
Delgin, I just want to say, Delgin Boyce, I see you have your hand up. Do you want to jump in right now or wait until?
No, I'm waiting, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
The next thread here, it's removing language that would have required MDE to conduct an analysis before deciding whether to issue a permit under the article. And it changes the requirement to adopt regulations to it changes it from a shall to a may. So it just authorizes the department. It doesn't require the department to adopt implementing regulations. So then there was also notice provisions that are being updated, where included in the notices the department already publishes, they would have to publish the EJ score for the census tract where the applicant is seeking a permit. And then the address of the department's website for accessing the EJ screen analysis. So, wait a minute.
I need to fix that EJ
It's been
screen.
taken out, right?
Yep.
Yep, that's going to come out. So just the notice provisions. There's two notice provisions that notice that is provided by MDE would just include information or notification of the EJ score.
And if there's one more thing I can point out for you, the change above, it's a very small change, but when it goes from section 1205 to section 1601, that would have these provisions. That's page 3. Keep going up a little bit more. And so 1601 are the public notice permits. And so that is not every single permit. It's the ones that would require public notice. And so then those also trigger the public notice provisions. And I mean, talking with the
Applying to the
advocates.
permits that already trigger this notice.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Delegate Boyce.
I think I'm okay. Okay, no, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions about this language? And again, Tower, you said there are a couple of places where there needs to be cleanup.
Yeah, just in the address and in the EJ screen. Yeah, I was whipping these out pretty quick.
Sure.
Tyler had a lot on his plate right before tonight.
Understood.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you.
Certainly.
And I'm sorry, maybe you said this, Kristen, but are there any further amendments that are going to be coming?
So I don't have any I'm not aware of any further amendments. However, there was opposition to this bill. So I'm not sure if any of the advocates, how they feel, if they want to weigh in on these amendments. Also, we got to keep in mind, there was a fiscal note attached to this. Tyler's indicated it's come down. He's going to submit information on that. And, we might, depending on where that falls, we might need to get some feedback from appropriations.
Yeah, we can't, we won't take any action tonight on the bill, but let's see. Okay, the reason I asked about any other amendments is because I got a text at 5:12 about some more amendments with MDE.
Those are these amendments, Mr.
That's okay. Thank you. That's what these are. Great. Okay. Delegate Boyce, did you have your hand up? No.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Sir, anyway, Pam, did you want to add something?
Oh, sorry. Yes, it was just in response to Kristen saying that there was some opposition, and we did raise concerns about this bill, partly because they applied to all permits and partly because of some of the wording. I had not seen this markup. My initial reaction is pretty good, but I'd like to take a chance to look at all of these amendments. But I think a lot of the initial concerns we had about some of probably unintended administrative consequences and unnecessary issues have been taken out based on these amendments. So if it would be okay, I'll take a quick look at them and share them with others who had concerns, but it looks like there's been some pretty good work done.
Okay. I guess, Tyler, do you think tomorrow you could fine tune the language so that we could get the proposed amendments out to anyone, to folks who are on tonight's call?
Yeah, I can do that. No problem.
Great. Okay. Any other questions or comments? No? All right. Well, then what we'll do we'll take another look at I guess we'll look for your revised amendments and tower an updated fiscal note. We'll do that on Wednesday. We'll sort of before then, we'll see whether we need to, based on the updated fiscal note, still get approval for, from appropriations. But we can continue the discussion Wednesday of this bill at minimum. And HB 869, hopefully we'll have revised amendments as well at Wednesday's meeting. And if we schedule the meeting for 2 o'clock on Wednesday, does that cause a conflict for anyone? I don't think we have bill hearings on Wednesday. Is that still the case, Kristen?
That's still the case, I believe. However, I'm not sure if something could be thrown on to Wednesday, depending on if we get letters on local bills and
sure,
like that. But right now, it seems open.
Okay. So at 2 o'clock, assuming that we don't have a conflict with bill hearings, 2 o'clock Wednesday work all right for subcommittee members? Okay, great. Okay. Well, then those were the bills we were going to take up this evening. See everyone on the floor in a few minutes. Thank you.
Good night.
Okay.